and welcome to the first edition in 2026 of Baroque Notes. I'm Jen Moore, Music of the Baroque's program annotator, and I'm very excited to talk about Fathers and Sons, an ingenious program that Dame Jane Glover crafted centering around two significant father-son relationships, Leopold and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and Johann Sebastian and Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach. But I'm going to begin in a place that might seem very far away from a concert hall, in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. The soloist for these performances, Damari McGill, a Chicago native who studied at the Merritt School of Music before moving on to the Curtis Institute in the Juilliard School, appeared with his brother, clarinetist Anthony McGill, on the show in 1994.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, getting ready for the concert?
Yes, I am.
What about the people who are going to play the flute and the clarinet?
The McGill brothers. They're getting dressed in their tuxedos for the concert.
Are they brothers?
Yes, Anthony and Damari.
Oh, I'd like to meet them. Oh, is this they?
Yes, it is.
Good. Hi. I'm Fred Rogers.
Hi, Damari McGill.
Glad to meet you, Damari.
Nice to meet
I'm
you.
Fred
Hi,
Rogers.
Anthony.
And glad to meet you,
Nice to meet
Anthony.
you. I'm going to let you visit, and I'll go put on my clothes.
Okay,
Bye.
I'll see you later. I'm really glad to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
In fact, I'd like you to know my television neighbor, Damari and Anthony McGill.
Hi. Hello.
And I know that my friend would like to hear your instruments. Would you show them how the flute sounds?
Sure.
That's lovely. And the clarinet? Do you ever play together?
Yes.
See?
Often, yes.
Could you play something together? Just the flute and the clarinet together?
Yeah.
Isn't that pretty?
This clip captures something essential about Damari McGill, who, along with serving as the principal flute of the Seattle Symphony, champions diversity and inclusion in classical music. Classical music is actually an essential part of Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, not as something elite, though, but as something that belongs to everyone, including children who may be encountering an instrument for the very first time. That idea, music is something that is shared, or in this case, handed down from person to person and transformed in the process, is exactly what Fathers and Sons is about. I'm going to talk briefly about the father-son relationship central to these concerts and how the music you'll hear illustrates these family dynamics. Following in a parent's footsteps can be somewhat fraught, but in the 18th century, it often wasn't optional. Skills were taught at home, professions were inherited, family reputation and survival were deeply intertwined with what one generation passed to the next. Few relationships make this more clear than that between Leopold Mozart and his son, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Leopold was a respected violinist at the Salzburg court and the author of one of the most influential violin treatises of the 18th century, published in 1756, the same year Wolfgang was born. Leopold consciously redirected his own ambitions toward cultivating his children's talents, especially Wolfgang's. Beginning when his son was just 6 years old, Leopold took him on extended tours across Europe, displaying his astonishing abilities at courts and capitals. Father and son traveled together for nearly a decade, and these journeys shaped Wolfgang's cosmopolitan musical language. But they also reinforced Leopold's authority and his sense of paternal sacrifice. As Wolfgang reached adulthood, that partnership began to fracture. Leopold struggled with his son's desire for independence, especially Wolfgang's wish to leave Salzburg and escape the rigid constraints of court employment. Their surviving letters revealed just how entangled they remained, however. In 1777, Wolfgang wrote, "I assure you that I always have before my eyes my father's wishes," revealing the voice of a son trying to step into his own life without severing the most important relationship he had. Leopold Mozart's Symphony in F major offers a glimpse into the musical world he passed on to his son. Born in Augsburg in 1719, Leopold wrote music steeped in the mid-century galant style, clear textures, balanced phrases, and an emphasis on charm and proportion. This was the style actually that bridged the gap between the Baroque and the high classical period that we associate with Mozart and Haydn. Leopold Mozart's symphony is compact. It's written in 3 movements and scored for strings and horns. This is music that prizes elegance over drama, and it's exactly the musical language Leopold taught Wolfgang as a child. Let's listen to a bit of the buoyant, upbeat opening allegro. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's Flute Concerto No. 2 in D major, written in 1778, just about a year after that quote that I shared with you about his father. It stands at a crossroads between obligation and independence. The concerto dates from a difficult period in Mozart's life during his unhappy stay in Mannheim and Paris, when tensions with his father were running high. The concerto was composed to fulfill a commission from a Dutch amateur flutist, Ferdinand de Jong. Short on time and reportedly a little unenthusiastic, Mozart adapted an earlier oboe concerto, which was probably written for Giuseppe Ferlendis. He transposed this new work from C major to D major, lightened the orchestral texture, adjusted the solo range, and added passage work that takes full advantage of the flute's agility and brilliance. What's remarkable to me is how this piece transforms a dutiful assignment into an assertion of artistic authority. Leopold's teachings, the clarity, the balance, the polish, are everywhere, but Mozart's voice is unmistakably his own. The concerto embodies the paradox of their relationship. A work born of obligation becomes a declaration of mastery. Let's listen to a bit of the first movement of Mozart's Second Flute Concerto. The dynamic between Johann Sebastian Bach and his son, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, unfolds very differently. Johann Sebastian Bach very famously had 20 children, and several went on to become composers, notably Wilhelm Friedemann, Carl Philipp Emanuel, and Johann Christian. Their lives span musical eras, bridging the Baroque and the classical. Unlike Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, better known and more simply known as CPE, revered his father's craft but felt little need for ongoing approval. He forged an independent career, first as harpsichordist to Frederick the Great in Berlin, and later music director in Hamburg. CPE was among the most famous composers of his time, and he was also an extremely influential teacher. When Mozart famously said, "Bach is the father, we are the children," he was referring not to Johann Sebastian, but to CPE. CPE Bach championed the galant style and, above all, Empfindsamkeit, a highly sensitive, emotionally volatile mode of expression. He believed a musician must feel every emotion that listeners were also expected to feel. The flute concerto in G major reflects these ideals vividly. Written for the Prussian court where the flute was a favorite instrument, it treats the soloist as an expressive voice rather than merely a vehicle for display. The discipline inherited from his father supports a new goal, music that speaks directly to the listener's inner life. Abrupt contrasts, rhetorical pauses, and sudden mood shifts keep listeners on their toes throughout all three movements. In the opening of the first movement, for example, the contrast between orchestra and solo instrument, not just in terms of color, but also mood, is particularly striking. Finally, we return to Johann Sebastian Bach with the Orchestral Suite No. 4, a monument to the Baroque at its height. The suite was performed by Leipzig's Collegium Musicum, which Bach directed in the 1730s, presenting public concerts in coffee houses and garden spaces where music was increasingly shared beyond church and court. The suite opens with a grand French overture, solemn, fugal, and triumphant. The dances that follow offer contrasts of color and character, culminating in a brilliant réjouissance with trumpets and timpani. Heard alongside his son's music, the suite reminds us that expressive freedom doesn't arise in a vacuum. It grows from inherited craft, discipline, and tradition. Let's listen to a little of the joyful conclusion. I love this conclusion, in which Bach brings together dance rhythms, melodic unison, contrast between instrumental textures, and also delicate interplay between the voices. So from Mr. Rogers' neighborhood to Salzburg to Leipzig and Berlin, we hear music not just as sound, but as inheritance, shaped by parents, transformed by children, and passed forward to new generations. And in that sense, Damari McGill's appearance on Mr. Rogers just fits perfectly. At its best, this music, like all great teaching, is about opening doors, inviting listeners in, and handing something precious to those who will carry it on. I look forward to seeing you at Fathers and Sons on Saturday, January 24th at the Harris Theater in Chicago. Note, it's Saturday, not Monday, so it's important. Sunday, January 25th at the North Shore Center for the Performing Arts, and on demand beginning January 30th. Thank you so much.